Hello there, Doug here from the Wilderness Files. Welcome to Random Wilderness Wednesdays video number 4. This is where I spin a random roulette wheel on the internet. It's got a number between 1 and 806. It represents one of the 806 wilderness areas in the United States. Whichever one it lands on will represent one of those 806 wilderness areas, and then we'll take a look at that wilderness area, figure out where it is, how big it is, what its characteristics are, and we'll figure out if it lands on my short list of wilderness areas to visit in the near future, or it might land on your short list of wilderness areas to visit, depending on what we learn about it. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and spin the wheel and see where we land. Okay, spinning the wheel here. While we're doing that, don't forget, if you haven't seen already, I wrote a book called Crack for Trout Bums. It's like a travel narrative centered on trout and the beautiful places they live. It's available on Amazon, hardback, paperback, and ebook. 304 is the number, 304. Okay, what do we have with 304? What wilderness area? 304 is a wilderness area called Middle Prong. Middle Prong. I don't know where this one is. It sounds like something that would not be in the West. I just have a feeling Middle Prong sounds like the name of a stream, fork of a river that is not in the West. I'm thinking it might be, I really don't know where this place is, but I'm going to take an educated guess and say this actually might be in the Ozarks somewhere. This might actually be Arkansas or Missouri. Middle Prong sounds like something like that. Let me scroll over and see what we got here. So this is a wilderness area. It's a small area, 7,000, just under 7,500 acres, established in 1984. And okay, it's North Carolina. So I was kind of half right. It is in the east, but it's not in the Ozarks. It's in the, I believe it's probably in the Appalachians. So Middle Prong. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with this place. So let's take a look, see what we got here. And okay, so this is wilderness.net, which is the best wilderness research site online, in my opinion. You can go to like recreation.gov and find information on wilderness areas as well, various other resources, but wilderness.net is really the single resource that has all of our wilderness areas. So if you go to wilderness.net and visit wilderness, you can do a search for wilderness. Let's type in Middle Prong, North Carolina. Let's start with a map here. So we'll get oriented here to figure out where this place is. So this is the interactive map here. Let's zoom out first so we get a national view. So that little blue dot there is where Middle Prong is. It looks like a southwestern North Carolina, right there in the Appalachians, southwest of Asheville. And Middle Prong Wilderness is right here. It looks like it borders Shining Rock Wilderness. I have heard of Shining Rock Wilderness. I think that's maybe a more popular area. I haven't been there. It looks like there's a road between the two. Yeah, there's a road between the two wilderness areas, so they're not contiguous, but you got Middle Prong here and the larger Shining Rock Wilderness right next to it. So a bit of a kind of a wilderness complex there. Let's see what, looks like there's a number of streams flowing through here. Designated the Middle Prong Wilderness in 1984, now has 7,482 acres, managed by the Forest Service. Okay, the description says pioneers grabbed up this area once part of the Cherokee Nation starting in 1796. After settlement, most of the land was purchased first by a paper company in the early 1900s, then by a lumber company. A town shaped up at the junction of the right prong, middle prong, and left prong and of the West Fork of the Pigeon River. The town was later relocated, but the lumber company continued its quest for timber, removing vast stands of red spruce, Fraser fir, hemlocks, and hardwoods from 1906 to 1926, building an extensive system of logging railroads. 4 of these old railroad beds are now used as hiking trails in today's Middle Prong Wilderness. That's kind of interesting. That's very unique. So you got some old railroad beds that have been ripped out and now used as hiking trails. So this is kind of interesting because one of the philosophies of wilderness is that once you exploit an area, that the wilderness character is gone forever. I don't necessarily believe that. I think that a place can be rewilded. So this is an example, in my opinion, of a wilderness area that was more developed in the past. So you actually had a town in this area. You had railroads going through it. You had major logging operations. way back in the early 1900s, and now about 100 years later, it's being rewilded, designated as wilderness, and they're allowing nature to reclaim the area. So it's not ideal, because you really want to protect wilderness that is in a more pristine state, and then keep it protected if you're a wilderness advocate. But this is an example of an area that has been exploited significantly in the past and is now being reclaimed by nature. And although we can go and hike and enjoy this area, it's a wilderness area, so you're not going to have railroads, you're not going to have logging roads, driving in this area, stuff like that. So this, to me, is an example of a place that is being rewilded, which is kind of a concept in global conservation, that you can actually take parts, either small or large parts of the planet, that have been degraded in the past by human exploitation, and over time they can actually be rewilded or have nature reclaim that area. And that does make a lot of sense to me, actually. I think you can do that, because most areas on the planet have been impacted by humans, even most wilderness areas. They've either been logged at some point in the past, there's had a road built through them at some point in the past, grazing, which still happens in a lot of wilderness areas today. So there's kind of degrees of a level of untouched nature when it comes to our wilderness areas. There's really not much wilderness that is completely intact, completely untouched. There is some out there, but not a whole lot. So the idea that we can actually rewild a place is kind of encouraging to a certain extent. But it's also not an excuse to say, well, you can go and develop an area, and only because, at some point in the future it can be returned. Well, it takes decades and decades and decades, if not centuries, for that to happen. So, but anyways, I'm getting off on a tangent here. Middle Prong Wilderness. So let's see what kind of pictures and stuff we can find of Middle Prong Wilderness here. I'm going to come up. Yeah, pretty classic Appalachian. You always see these waterfalls like this. I mean, this is just beautiful. These waterfalls over the rock and the leaves and stuff. That's really classic Appalachian scenery here. Again, this waterfall here. And in the high scenes, you get these, it mentioned the balds. So you get this thick, dense forest down in the trees, and then on the top of the mountains, the bald part on the mountain, where you can actually get these big views across the Appalachian type mountains. You can see why they called part of the Appalachians the Smoky Mountains here, because you get that haze from all the moisture there. Let's see if we can find maybe a YouTube. All right, so this is Brian DeLay. By the way, I'm going to real quick about using YouTube videos, just sort of the ethics and the legalities of it. When you use short clips of somebody else's YouTube videos and you're doing like a reaction or talking about it, maybe putting some words on it, that's legally covered under fair use. As long as you're using short pieces of it and you're adding something to it, that's protected by copyright law in general, by fair use. But as a matter of ethics, as a matter of principle, whenever I show somebody's YouTube video, I'm going to show who I'm showing here. I'll cite them in my description and on the screen, and then more than likely I'll probably also subscribe to their channel. So this is Brian DeLay.
Hello everyone, it is Friday, June the 28th, 2024, and I've just started a 2-night backpacking trip in Middle Prong Wilderness in western North Carolina.
Oh, he's got a pretty cool intro here. Yeah. Oh, this guy goes all over the place. Yeah, I'm definitely subscribing to Brian DeLay here. Great. Let's see what this is all about. So here you get a sense for the environment here in the Middle Prong. Look at that green. Yeah.
Today the plan is to continue on the Mountains to Sea Trail, then take Green Mountain Trail and maybe camp up there, or I don't know, we may drop down Buckeye Gap Trail.
So real quick, so obviously from what he said there, the Mountains to Sea Trail goes through this wilderness area. I know that's a long trail. I don't know a whole lot about it, so let's look that up real quick. Mountains to Sea Trail. Maybe we can get a Wikipedia here. So the Mountains to Sea Trail traverses North Carolina from the Great Smoky Mountains to the Outer Banks. It's pretty long then, 669 miles. So this is a long trail, 669 miles. kind of akin to like the Colorado Trail, which is 500 miles, or the Arizona Trail, which is about 800 miles. This Mountains to Sea Trail traverses the length of North Carolina, and part of it goes through the Middle Prong Wilderness. So that's kind of interesting.
Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this backpacking trip in the Middle Prong Wilderness in Pisgah National Forest.
Brian DeLay, good stuff. He does good on those videos. Definitely, I subscribe to him. Cool. All right. Well, I think we're going to call it good for today. Random Wilderness Wednesdays number 4, Middle Prong Wilderness in North Carolina, small wilderness area in the Appalachians. It looks like a nice place. It's got part of the Cedar Mountains Trail, which I didn't realize how long that was. I was guessing the Cedar Mountains Trail was maybe a couple of hundred miles. It's actually close to 700 miles from the Outer Banks through the Appalachians of North Carolina. That'd be an interesting one to do for a long trail, I think. Definitely, I would go here. Definitely on my list if I'm in that area. I've been to Western North Carolina before when I used to live in North Georgia, up there a couple times. I didn't do much hiking in that area, but the scenery is quite nice. Western North Carolina is pretty nice. So if I'm ever over in that area, I think the Middle Prong would definitely be a nice little wilderness area that I would definitely check out. It looks really pretty, very, very green. Okay, well, I'm going to call it good for this one then. Until the next one, thanks for joining. Please subscribe if you like this content. By the way, I do my own hiking and backpacking videos as well. I just like to do this sort of studio side content as well, just to keep the information flowing. Also, just because I think it's kind of fun. Just because we've got so many wilderness areas out there. A lot of people don't know how many that we have. 806 wilderness areas, and it's just fun to just randomly see what's out there and learn about these wilderness areas as we go. So thanks for joining. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.